What's good, YouTube? Welcome back. Today it is LazyDaze Tubby back at it again with another reaction for you guys today, and it is some more Sabaton history for you guys, and it is a lifetime of war, the 30 years war Sabaton history, episode 31. I'm really looking forward to finding out what they got in store for me today. Of course, Nindy Idol and the bandmates make amazing content, good banter all around. If you haven't already, head over to their page, links in the description box down below. If you're enjoying my reaction, like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell, but we are going to jump straight into this reaction.
And I'm Pat from Sabaton, and this is Sabaton History. The 30 Years' War, 400 years ago, pitted Catholic Europe against Protestant Europe. And 30 years was pretty much what you would call a lifetime. A lifetime of war.
It is. Like, let's be honest, you think about it, 30 years is a big integral part of your life, you know, and then the after effects you would have to deal with that if you survive the war would affect you for the rest of your life. So it is a life sentence.
Starting with the Protestant Reformation that kicked off the century earlier, by 1618, the Holy Roman Empire had grown deeply divided into Protestant, Lutheran, Catholic territories. But this mostly German empire, even though in reality more of a multicultural patchwork of many duchies and dioceses, was still technically an empire ruled by a single emperor of the Habsburg dynasty. And it was his duty to uphold the peace and the rights of his subjects.
Okay.
Emperor Ferdinand, however, who had promised religious freedom to the aristocracy upon his coronation, was going back on his word. Now pursued a new policy of re-Catholicization of his crown lands. In mainly...
That's the issue when you say one thing and do the opposite when you get in power.
Protestant Bohemia, this meant closing down Protestant churches and empowering the lesser Catholic clergy once again. For the Bohemians, this did not just threaten the open practice of their religion, but the actual real power of the mainly Protestant landowners. As their protests were repeatedly ignored, powerful Bohemian aristocrats finally came together against Habsburg rule. In Prague, the Bohemians...
I think we covered this in the sort of Congress of Vienna, maybe, where that area of the Holy Roman Empire was sort of one of the most wealthiest and also paid the least amount of tax, I believe.
Capital. On May 23rd, 1618, they took action and threw the imperial officials out of the window. Yep,
holy crap.
This was the second defenestration of Prague. The word
no way.
The German word for window. So to defenestrate is to chuck someone out of one. Okay, with this symbolic defenestration, they had, in actual fact, openly declared war on the authority of the empire. For the Czech patriots and anti-Habsburg radicals, this was a welcome chance to take up arms. Rebellious provinces sprang up all over. They secretly raised militias and hastily organized detachments of Bohemians, Moravians, Hungarians, Silesians, and hired mercenaries fell on imperial outposts and blocked their supply lines, hoping to gather support from yet other provinces with a series of quick successes.
Okay.
Protestant rebels even stormed the Hofburg in Vienna in an attempt to physically seize the emperor and force him to sign their demands. The rebels rejected Ferdinand and the imperial constitution and wanted a commonwealth of their own, like that of Poland and Lithuania, led by their own king in a constitutional monarchy.
Okay.
Their uprising failed, however, as the Habsburg emperor was not without friends and support. Imperial propaganda portrayed the Bohemian uprising as arch treachery that disturbed the peace of the empire, and many staunchly Catholic dukes pledged their allegiance to the emperor. Ferdinand had been caught off guard, sure, but he had no intention of giving up the crowns of Hungary or Bohemia, which might even jeopardize the structural integrity of his whole empire, and he was determined to go on the offensive, to quell the rebellion with fire and sword.
Okay.
war itself seems at first like localized rebellions over cultural and religious differences, but in reality, it revolved around the future of the Holy Roman Empire, which was the primary Christian religion. Who had the power, the emperor or the dukes and their possessions? Political unity under one belief, or even more fragmentation with religious liberty? Ferdinand's strongest ally came from Bavaria. The zealous Duke Maximilian re-established the Liga, a covenant of Catholics, and raised an army with the blessing of the papacy. Under the command of his paladin, the Count of Tilly, they were eager to take the fight to the Protestants and forced them to battle in late 1620. The Battle of White Mountain was one of the first major engagements of the war, and one of the most decisive ones. Tilly's forces, better led and supplied than their enemies, won a major victory and then took Prague that winter. But as kings and dukes quarreled over cities, estates, and property rights, for the common people living in Prague and the villages along the trail of armies, the horrors that accompanied war became reality. And this was not a temporary situation, because this war is called the 30 Years' War, because that's how long it lasted. And it is often said about the war that the longer it went on, the more the violence and cruelty intensified. But really, the seeds of uncontrolled violence were already planted in the early stages. Discipline among the common soldiers was usually pretty low, and more so on the side of the rebels. Irregular forces particularly raged among the local populations. Polish skirmishers, Hungarian raiders, and Croatian cavalrymen terrorized panicked peasants and refugee columns. Marauders and bandits roamed alongside the marching armies, and the
It's so scary to be a peasant back then, and if you just didn't have a way to... If people were roaming your lands and just a war was going on throughout your area, it was like the Wild West, you know? Anything goes.
Soldiers were often not much better behaved, especially after long and dangerous sieges, when pumped up and often drunk soldiers had been forced to storm a city under fire. They would afterwards take out their rage and fear on the locals. From house to house, they plundered and stole everything they could carry. If they did not find anything, or if others were quicker than they were, because it was first come, first serve when it came to plundering, they would turn on the helpless citizens. Men, women, and even children were brutally tortured for the slightest chance of hidden valuables. Since this was often the only way the soldiers could make actual money to feed and equip themselves and their families, they could not afford to show mercy. Many simply embraced boundless, unchecked violence as a new way of life. The fall of Prague marked the collapse of the Bohemian Confederation, but the war itself obviously did not end, as the triumphant Ferdinand failed to take advantage of his victory. He would not listen to any compromise of his demands to restore his full authority. There was no chance for religious equality after the revolt, and instead, he condemned captured rebels to an agonizing death, while the escaped ringleaders were under an imperial ban.
Torturing people as well. Fuck me.
Together with the confiscation and distribution of rebel property, this just further escalated the war and drove many new Protestant champions to the cause of the rebellion. The war, that began as a rather localized conflict in the east and center of the empire, spread to the north in the 1620s. Imperial and Liga forces entered the zones of influence and interest of other great powers. In 1625, Danish King Christian declared war on the empire to secure his influence in northern Germany and portray himself as a Protestant savior. The Hanseatic League outright refused cooperation with the emperor and insisted on its autonomy and neutrality. Polish sovereign Sigismund, on the other hand, was sympathetic to the imperial cause and introduced the Cossacks to European warfare, but also attracted the attention of the Swedes.
Did he actually? Interesting.
In 1630, under the king and Lion of the North, Gustav Adolf, they set out to secure their interest in the Baltics. A strong Catholic influence in the north could not be tolerated by the ambitious House of Vasa, while Spain, themselves busy with Calvinist rebels, also sent out troops to help the Imperials. The French, who would rather see a fragmented Protestant Germany than a unified Catholic one, at first supported the northern forces with money, until in
Okay, this makes
1635,
sense.
to prevent a peace treaty, they entered
Also, even it is sometimes just easier to keep a state divided than have it united and become a stronger power.
the war themselves. The war grew and grew, as did the armies, as did death and suffering. New knights appeared on the chessboard. Rich and ambitious men like von Mansfeld or Wallenstein aimed to get even richer through the war. Von Mansfeld tried.
Most people do try and take advantage and just get themselves, make sure that they gain power and riches during the worst time in the world.
To establish his own legend in the defense of Protestant liberty, while Wallenstein on the opposing side raised thousands of men for the emperor in his own pursuit of elevating his status among the nobility.
Mm-hmm.
War was business. War gave common but ambitious men a chance to rise in society. Experienced mercenary groups traveled from engagement to engagement and fought for the highest bidder. But the way to the top was paved with the blood and lives of thousands, then millions of men. Killing had become a normality, and authority broke down everywhere as the war expanded. Harvests were confiscated, cattle were slaughtered, people starved on the streets, and besieged cities even resorted to cannibalism.
The paintwork really hits, and he just said resorted to cannibalism. How desperate do you have to be looking at another human being and go, you know what, that looks tasty?
Peasants took to guerrilla fighting and formed robbery gangs and militias to fight off the marauders. But the major killer was disease. Where armies go, sickness follows. And for every battle, thousands more died of a variety of diseases like plague or Hungarian fever. Rodents bred in the crowded cities. Wolves roamed the countryside. Cats and dogs disappeared in the kitchen. Religious hatred rallied religious zealotry, and many captured priests and nuns were murdered and mutilated. Popular acts of barbarism included pulling ropes so tight around people's necks that their eyes popped out. The Schwedentrunk was
Crazy.
especially disgusting, forcing the victim to swallow large amounts of liquid excrement. Another fun game was to make criminals or deserters gamble for their lives and punishments. The lucky throw of dice would decide if a man lost a hand, his tongue, or his life.
Wow.
Trees were full of the other unlucky ones.
Oh my god, that photo there, just literally, that is a hanging tree. That is a hanging tree if I've ever seen one. Holy God.
There are only estimates as to how many people died, as records naturally lack specific data. The highest estimates are of a death rate of 40% of the population compared to the pre-war population numbers within the empire. But even with the lower, nowadays more often accepted numbers of around 15%, we speak of a war that was possibly, or even likely, the deadliest that ever raged in Europe by percentage, including both world wars. In the public conscious, it was not only a war, though, but a 30-year tragedy that ravaged the German lands and killed so many people, it would take many decades to replenish those lost. A whole generation of people lived through 30 years of war. From when they were born until when they were up to 30 years old, they knew no life but constant war and terror. And
you would carry that through the rest of your life. Do you know what I mean? Having to live like that through 30 years, that would never leave you. You would live that way for the rest of your life.
there were even soldiers that served from the beginning in 1618 to the end in 1648, often in different armies on changing sides, but still serving. And who could have predicted that the war would last so long? Between all the religious ideals and politics, who could have made sense of all the violence? Who could have avoided it? Who wanted to, and who didn't? There was plenty of time to answer such questions. 30 years. 30 long years of war.
Crazy.
So, Per, what are we gonna see now?
We have some really amazing footage that pretty much nobody have seen. We shot a music video for A Lifetime of War.
Yeah.
Very few people know about it because nobody have seen it.
I didn't know about it. I haven't
Let me know if you want me to react to that in the comments box down below.
seen it.
I have not seen it because actually the footage was lost.
Well,
Oh,
lost.
okay.
Like somebody left it on a train or something?
And no, the guy disappeared. The guy who filmed it,
Oh,
he
interesting.
disappeared.
I'm sorry, that's
and
funny.
until today, we have not been able to obtain the original footage.
Okay.
So
So if he's out there, maybe he can return the footage?
that would be great.
That'd be great.
But until then,
yeah.
we actually had our fantastic fan club in Poland, the Polish Panzer Battalion, who were there with us
Okay.
when we were shooting this. And they helped us to produce kind of behind the scenes of this.
Okay, during the video.
Okay.
Yeah. What we're gonna see
Interesting.
now is pretty much behind the scenes of a music video that never
Nobody's
became
ever seen.
Oh, good to see it now. Okay, sure.
I feel dirty. So fucking dirty.
Okay. Well, and there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. We hope you enjoyed that today. I certainly enjoyed it. That was totally new for me,
And that was supposed to be the music video for A Lifetime of War, which never happened.
which never happened. And maybe one day we will actually get to see that video if that guy brings back the footage.
Resurface.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for today, Per. We'll see you next time on Sabaton History.
Okay.
That's it for today. Hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Sabaton History Channel. There will be another one every week until we run out of songs. It's gonna take a while. So until then, enjoy it, support us, become...
And you know, I'm subscribed and hit that notification bell. I really enjoyed this episode. That was a great little story. I'm looking forward to jumping into the next video and the next reaction to this. Hopefully you should expect the next song tomorrow. If you're looking forward to that, then like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and I will see you in the next video.